calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is the beginning of a brand new week. We're in Washington, D.C. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show will be covering the Congressional Black Caucus for KBLA through the week. Hopefully, Dr. Nee Quarterly-Quarte, our White House correspondent, will periodically join us as well. I'm very, very excited to talk today with our regular contributor on Monday mornings or Monday afternoons, Ernest Krim. And when Ernest Krim comes on today, I want to talk with him specifically about an article that I read in Black Enterprise. House Republicans, led by House Speaker Mike Johnson, put forth a 5-page resolution co-sponsored by 165 of his colleagues, praising the white nationalist Charlie Kirk as a courageous American patriot who wanted to elevate truth, foster understanding, and strengthen the republic. According to The Guardian, the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, informed Democrats in a closed-door meeting that leadership would vote in favor of the resolution. But the vote, as it regards other members, was left up to them as individual members. In other words, they were allowed or encouraged to vote their conscience. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, one of the Democrats who voted no, noted who Kirk actually was. Quote, "We should be clear about who Charlie Kirk was. A man who believed that the Civil Rights Act that granted Black Americans the right to vote was a mistake, who after the violent attack on Paul Pelosi claimed that some amazing patriot out there should bail out this assailant, and accused Jews of controlling not just colleges, it's non-profits, it's the movies, it's Hollywood, it's all of it. His rhetoric and beliefs were ignorant and sought to disenfranchise millions of Americans, far from working tirelessly to promote unity as asserted by the majority in this resolution," Ocasio-Cortez noted. The Congressional Black Caucus also noted its disagreement with the vote via a September 19th press release. CBC Chair Yvette Clarke echoed some of AOC's concerns in her statement. "We strongly disagree with many of the beliefs Charlie Kirk promoted, including his belief that the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which ended racial segregation, was a mistake, his denial that systematic racism exists, his promotion of the Great Replacement theory, and his offensive claims about Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, Michelle Obama, and Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee lacking adequate cognitive ability. The resolution introduced in the House, Honor Charlie Kirk's Legacy, is not about healing, lowering the temperature of our political discourse, or even ensuring the safety of members of Congress, staff, and Capitol personnel. It is unfortunately an attempt to legitimize Kirk's worldview, a worldview that includes ideas many Americans find racist, harmful, and fundamentally un-American," Clarke said. She concluded, "In the wake of this tragedy, President Trump has senselessly threatened to go after the political left. The American people are tired of this kind of cynical politics. It's disheartening to see a tragedy used to further divide the country and suppress honest debate. As the conscience of the Congress, the CBC has a responsibility to speak out against this on behalf of our communities, and we're calling on each of our colleagues who share our values to follow suit. Enough is enough." In what remains of this first segment, I just wanted to opine on something that was raised by this article that we're going to see over and over and over again, that I saw for 17 years as a member of Congress, and that is this. The leadership said they are voting for the resolution. The rank and file membership of the Congressional Black Caucus and the Democratic Party, many of them, some of them, voted against this resolution. In fact, it was Jasmine Crockett who said of the, I believe she said, 58 people who voted against the resolution, only 2 were Caucasian. The rest were people of color. That's what Jasmine Crockett said. 2 Caucasians, assuming they disagreed with Mr. Kirk's remarks and his history and legacy of the things that he promoted and said. Only 2 whites in the entire Congress voted against the resolution. The rest were people of color who found Mr. Kirk's remarks highly offensive. What does that say? It says that the leadership provided and gave cover to those Democrats who did not want to be identified with Mr. Kirk's views, but believed in the moment that First Amendment values reigned supreme over African Americans, Hispanics, LGBTQIA communities, and others who have been disparaged by Mr. Kirk, and the history that has been disparaged by Mr. Kirk, and the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. and everyone who's ever fought for human rights in the United States of America. We should be profoundly concerned that one message from the Democratic Party says vote for the resolution because it placates our supporters, our followers, our contributors. But the vast majority of people of color in the Democratic Party said no to who Mr. Kirk was. That is at the core of Democratic messaging. And we've got a lot to talk about in this hour, and I will do it with Mr. Ernest Krim. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Ernest Krim when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
You know that Big Bargain detergent jug is 80% water, right? It doesn't clean as well.
80% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure, concentrated cleaning ingredients.
Oh, let me make an announcement.
Attention shoppers, if you want a real deal, try Tide Pods.
Stop paying for watered-down detergents. Pay for clean. If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Pods. Water content based on the leading bargain liquid detergent.
Dude, did you order the new iPhone 17 Pro? Got it from Verizon, the best 5G network in America. I've never looked so good.
You look the same.
But with this camera, everything looks better, especially me.
You haven't changed your hair in 15 years. Selfies? Check, please.
New and existing customers can get the new iPhone 17 Pro, designed to be the most powerful iPhone ever. With eligible phone trade-in and unlimited ultimate, any condition guaranteed. Best 5G source root metrics data, United States, 1H 2025. All rights reserved. Trade-in and additional terms apply for all offers. See Verizon.com for details.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to KBLA Talk 1580. Before I introduce Ernest Krim, I just want to comment very briefly on how amazing the conversation was with Tavis in the previous hour regarding Minnie Riperton. I drove 12 hours along with our producer, Gina Town Junior show to Washington, D.C. yesterday. And we decided to list the top 10 women vocalists of all time. Believe it or not, Minnie Riperton, with her short-lived life, was at the top, and she only lived to be 31. We placed Whitney Houston and we placed Celine Dion in the top 3 as well. But Minnie Riperton, it's impossible to speak about female vocalists without listing the amazing contribution and the range of her extraordinary voice in such a short period of time, such a short life. And so I hope those of you who attend the event at the Hollywood Bowl have a blast, because it is one of the most amazing lives that has ever been lived in the history of music. If there ever was an angel that existed in song, it most definitely was the late Minnie Riperton. Also from Chicago, also from the Pullman Porter Roseland area of the city of Chicago. The Pullman Porter Museum is now a national park in large measure because of legislation that I sponsored to turn it into a national park on the south side of Chicago. And when I get back to Chicago, I'm going to do everything that I can to ensure that the legacy of Minnie Riperton on that board of distinguished people who have lived a life as Pullman Porters, that the Riperton family is honored there because of her extraordinary contribution to music. With that said, I'm particularly honored that Ernest Krim III, an Emmy-nominated producer, public teacher, anti-racist educator, and hate crime victor who uses Black historical narratives to empower and educate through a culturally equitable lens, is on our program today. Mr. Krim, a South Side of Chicago native and University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana graduate, is a former high school teacher, educator of 12 years, who now also advocates for social justice issues and teaches Black history to the world through social media. Ernest, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks again for having me, brother, for such a time as this.
Ernest, it's very, very important that you participate in this program. You bring an extraordinary perspective, and I have been just in ultimate admiration of the posts that you've been placing on Facebook with these amazing historical narratives. I have to stop and just watch them myself. Ernest, let me fast forward to a real political dynamic that I began with in the opine of the program itself, and that is the messaging of those that we vote for. And given that, by and large, African Americans largely vote for Democrats, and therefore Democrats tend to represent, if you will, represent our interests. We have one message from the Democratic leadership that says, we're going to vote for this resolution. Or we're, in the case of Charlie Schumer, I'm going to vote for the Republican budget bill. But then you have these other Democrats who are messaging saying, this budget bill cuts Medicaid. Or in the case of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the Charlie Kirk resolution, she sounded more like the leader of the Congressional Black Caucus, along with Yvette Clarke, than the Democratic leadership, who is African American. Help us reconcile the mixed signals, if you can, or even if they are reconcilable, the mixed messages that we're receiving from the Democrats going into their legislative weekend in Washington, D.C.
Brother, I'm disgusted. You know, I knew about that vote, but I did not know all the details. And I was already riled up coming on this call with you because just the climate, and there's just so much going on, but I did not know all those intricate details. It's disturbing to know that you can, as a collective, say that we are against what this person stood for while simultaneously voting for a resolution for that person. That does not mean that you approve of how he was killed. The Democrats are constantly making concessions, constantly capitulating to a group of people who could care less about you being kind and polite while they bring us to a fascist state. These are things that are happening in real time. Charlie Kirk is not Dr. King. We have to say that plainly. Charlie Kirk is not that. We don't approve of how he was killed, but he does not represent that to anybody and should not. These are the facts. We can, even if you have different political views, what he said, and also compared to what Dr. King said, what he actually did versus what Dr. King actually did, going to college campuses and debating with kids who just got out of high school, who just passed the Constitution test, who haven't even taken a political science course yet, does not warrant you to be this beacon of free speech. And to then know that within our community, beyond the democratic issue of people of all backgrounds who voted for this, to have those folks say that, like, so, and I don't understand how you can say, bro, that you are against somebody, but then say, but you know what, I'll vote for the resolution. To me, it's politics as usual. Quite frankly, I'm tired, man. I'm tired of constantly hearing and seeing these games they are playing. These are real lives at stake. And what are the odds that this dude was born on the same day as George Floyd? You can't make it.
You know, let me give you a chance to recalibrate and get your breath. Let me ask you a question. What does the mixed messaging say, though? You have children, and the parsing of the English language to say, I support this, but on the other hand, as a matter of principle, I'm freeing you to vote your conscience. Well, what is your conscience if you're willing to vote for this? What do you believe if you're willing to vote for this? Is there a party that can come together and say, this is wrong? It is wrong as a matter of all of our consciences. And we should hold Democrats accountable to that behavior. And this is not just Charlie Kirk. I mean, this is the Voting Rights Act. Are you going to stick with the Voting Rights Act? Are you going to stick with Medicaid? Are you going to stick with Medicare? Are you going to stick with Social Security? Are you going to fight for the least of these in this society, or are you not? You got one reason why rich people deserve tax breaks, and part of that reason is you have rich contributors to your campaign. But then on the other hand, I'm with you because I want better schools, but you just gave away the money to fund better schools, to fund history in schools, to fund teachers at the level that they should be paid. Ernest?
Brother, the Democrats, they would have already had enough votes, right? Like, I don't correct me if I'm wrong. They didn't need the Democratic support. And when I'm talking about Democrats, I also want to make it clear, I'm talking about the folks who keep acquiescing to this, because we know even within the ranks of the Democratic Party, there is division, because there are people who, just like you said before, are taking a righteous stand. But it just so happens that we have what we have here, a two-party system. So everybody is grouped together on this same left side that might not actually agree with the same things. I kid you not. On my Threads page, I posted something about a week and a half ago, just recognizing the pattern of events and how they would do this. And I mentioned they're going to give this dude a holiday. I swear I did not think it was going to happen this quick. Now we know, like, it's a recognition and all these types of things, but it's going to grow. People lost their lives to give Dr. King a holiday, and we know how long it took. We're talking almost 20 years or so. We're talking about the fact that there were states that were still voting against it at the time. Let's keep that in mind. There were states, Arizona, for instance, who were voting against giving Dr. King a holiday. How dare you give this dude that type of recognition without some pushback? That's where I'm at right now. And I think it's important, too, that you bring up the fact that we had only two white folks. Only two. To me, how I feel about that is, and all of this is just kind of what I've already felt about the Democratic Party since I've been in college, as I've been growing, right? They, especially some of those who are white within this Democratic Party, can view someone like Charlie Kirk as not really being that harmful, because Charlie Kirk was no threat to them. Charlie Kirk is their young nephew, their little cousin, little brother that would have been over for Thanksgiving dinner. He would have been someone who would have been spewing all this hateful rhetoric that they may have laughed at and laughed off. he's someone that they probably wouldn't have taken serious, but they also look at him as more of a brother than someone like you or I who are more aligned with them ideologically. I don't believe that the majority of them are willing to sacrifice the privileges of their whiteness to do what's right for all of us.
You know what, Ernest? I have teachers. I even have a pastor, Reverend Clay Evans, my present pastor, Reverend James Meeks, who've dedicated their entire lives to pulling people together. I mean, I think I could make an effective argument that they deserve a national holiday. In the case of Reverend Clay Evans, posthumously, a national holiday. I mean, there's a litany of people in each of our lives. If you can hear my voice, do you think your mother deserves a national holiday for all that she sacrificed for you? Do you think your father deserves a national holiday for having birthed you and raised you and sacrificed for you just like your mother did? Now, what elevates this individual to national celebration if he can condemn your very existence, other than the fact of privilege? Other than the fact, yes, the death was tragic, but the rhetoric, the legacy, even more tragic. Death is always tragic. But like Reverend John Howard Wesley said, how you lived matters in this equation, Mr. Krim. Mr. Krim? Ernest?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought. Hey, I was listening. I was tuned in. I was taking it all in. No, and I think what makes this particularly sinister, and what we have to watch for is Charlie Kirk was young, right? 30, 31 years old. So they are able to. And I was talking to a friend about this. He fits a different profile than the prototypical or stereotypical racist that we were taught about growing up, and this has been shifting for a while. I would say probably in the last decade with people like Richard Spencer and those so-called protests in Charlottesville. They are shifting from like the redneck stereotype to the clean cut, American guy with the suit and tie on who many times maybe is not raising his voice and is talking in a completely different tone. They want to use him as a proxy. He is a martyr to that movement because not only does he represent free speech, and we know that's not necessarily true because even Jimmy Kimmel couldn't exercise that right, but to them, he represents what they truly want and desire at their core. And because he is who he is and who he was, they can mention him and it signals to people of that belief, of that system, that that's what they want to continue. They don't have to, in hieroglyphics, like you just see the symbol and you know what it means deep down in your soul. When you see a symbol, it resonates with you. They don't have to say the quotes. They won't utter the quotes, but they'll just say he was a beacon of free speech. Free speech for what? The free speech that is at the core of the injustices that we originally faced here and continue to face here.
Free speech, in my opinion, I should share this with you. It has limitations, right? I mean, freedom of speech to what? To scalp Indians? I mean, that's okay. Freedom of speech to lynch a man and to call that freedom of expression? Is that okay? Freedom to deny someone the right to drink at a public water fountain? That's a form of expression. Is that okay? A sign that says whites only, colored not allowed. Is that acceptable speech in the United States? A sign that says whites enter this way and blacks enter that way. That's free speech. But is that okay? Is it okay to give the Nazi salute? It's free speech. But morally, to me, it's not okay. And of course, someone could say that holding up one's fists in the air and arguing for Black power, Dr. King warned us about that. He said that words and speech connote one thing and they denote another. That's what he chastised Stokely Carmichael and others who were in and participating in the March Against Fear. After the death, I believe, of Jimmy Lee Jackson, the March Against Fear. He said, if you turn our March Against Fear into a march for Black power, the other side is going to react with a march for white power. He said, that's not what our march is about. And Stokely said, the cat's already out the bag. We believe in Black power. He said, no, we believe in a world house. We believe in living with our neighbor. We believe in loving our neighbors with ourselves. And so what we say, Dr. King said to Stokely Carmichael and all the young cats, was the way in which we conduct ourselves matters in the end. The end that we seek is pre-existent in the means, and therefore we've given thought to the messaging of our March Against Fear. And just because we have these rallies at the end of our evening and protest in our march, we don't just get allowed to get up and give a speech and call out any kind of platform that we want. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580 More with Ernest Krim when we come forward.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Police searched a Hollywood Hills home tied to Black singer David after the remains of 15-year-old Celeste Rivas were found in his car. This woman says Rivas was her neighbor.
It's hard because for a mother that has a child around the same age, you take it differently, you know?
Detectives removed a computer and other items while David canceled the rest of his U.S. tour. Former President Barack Obama is calling on media companies to stand up to President Trump after ABC suspended Jimmy Kimmel Live. The show was pulled after Kimmel called the, quote, MAGA gang, end quote, out over comments on Kirk's assassin, prompting an FCC threat. Obama says the move amounts to government coercion and warns networks not to cave. And the iHeartRadio Music Festival kicks off today in Las Vegas with performances from Glorilla, Mariah Carey, LL Cool J, and more. The two-day event will air on iHeart stations nationwide and stream live on Hulu. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Arcadia crash on the 210 eastbound at Baldwin Avenue. They're going to be there a while in that carpool in left lane, and the drive is a mess out of Pasadena, leaving Sierra Madre. Beyond the scene of the crash, you still have a tough drive in stretches all the way to Foothill Boulevard. It's slow moving right now. This is on the 10 eastbound. Out of City Terrace, delays from City Terrace Drive in stretches all the way into Redlands. And the Cajon Pass, 15 northbound, loading up at Sierra all the way to the 138.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Both of LA's NFL teams had drama Sunday on the last play of the game. The Chargers got the W. The Rams did not. The Rams had a chance to win it in Philadelphia with 3 seconds left. Eagles defensive end Jordan Davis blocked Joshua Carter's 44-yard field goal attempt, then scooped up the loose ball and ran 61 yards for a touchdown. The Rams lost 33-26. They led the defending Super Bowl champions 26-7 in the third quarter. The Chargers are one of 6 undefeated teams in the NFL. They got a 43-yard field goal at the buzzer from Cameron Dicker to get past Denver 23-20 at SoFi. The Chargers are 3-0 for the first time since 2002. The Dodgers lead San Diego by 3 games in the NL West with 6 regular season games remaining. The Dodgers' magic number is down to 3. Any combination of 3 Dodgers wins or a San Diego loss gives the Dodgers their 12th division title in 13 years. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., inviting you to join me weekdays at 12 noon, right after Tavis Smiley, here on KBLA Talk 1580. As a law school graduate and a theologian with a firm grasp of our body politic given almost 2 decades in Congress, my show is the fresh new home of an authentic, uncompromised quest for transformation and salvation, both personal and collectively, as I vigorously interrogate the theological and symbolic meanings embedded in our society. I promise to leverage my knowledge of history, theology, and both international and domestic issues to imagine an inclusive vision for the future, which I hope will inspire all of us to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as a given, not just an aspiration. So join me weekdays at 12 noon, right after Tavis Smiley, for 2 hours of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Forward, the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest is Ernest Krim, an Emmy-nominated producer, public teacher, anti-racist educator, and hate crime victor. He has created content for companies such as HBO, Hulu, Disney, Paramount, and the History Channel. Additionally, he is the CEO of Krim's Cultural Consulting LLC, an international speaker who's spoken at Harvard, the University of Chicago, Microsoft, and for Colin Kaepernick. Ernest, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks again for having me back.
Ernest, for your generation, Ernest is my favorite millennial and certainly the favorite millennial of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show with his own show on the first hour of our programming on Monday. Ernest, hypocrisy is the issue here. And the extent to which a party can be identified with hypocrisy, it seems to me that hypocrisy and representation are two antithetical terms. If you're going to represent me and my interests, there should be almost no moment in that process where you're a hypocrite, where you say one thing to me, but you do something else. Now, on this program and on KBLA, we spend a lot of time trying to encourage people to come out and vote, to register to vote, to participate. It's your vote. But no one's going to vote for someone who looks them dead in their face, tells them a lie or misinformation, or is deceptive, knowing full well they say one thing when they're standing in front of me, but when they go to Washington, D.C., or to Sacramento, or to Springfield, or to Atlanta, Georgia, the state capitals of our country, and suddenly you vote differently than what you've said to me, or you have a rationale that is different than the one you gave to me when you said you were going to represent me in the first place. Ernest, amongst millennials and millennial thinking, how serious is the idea of hypocrisy?
It reminds me of the saying that we often heard growing up, do as I say, not as I do. And I think that's an accurate reflection of what the Democratic Party has shown themselves to be to us. We are in a period of time where we need people to stand up boldly in all facets of life. I want us to understand that although we often mention the most preeminent civil rights figures of our lifetime, that the work was also done by everyone in their respective avenues, respective places of work. And when we know that they are at the forefront of policy, though, that can change our livelihoods for the better or worse, it is disheartening to constantly see this time and time again. And I think, especially as millennials, we are not just the middle child in terms of where we are right now, but we are literally the middle child in terms of how technology has shifted our lives so dramatically. We've seen a little bit of what life was like before, smartphones and the digital age and what it has transformed to. And we are exposed to a lot. We have families, we are leaders in our communities, and we are in search of something, someone to speak up for us and to actually mean it, because we have not seen it consistently. And I think that's the thing that is truthfully hurting the most, because we see what we're up against. I think everyone is aware of politics. Now, we can never say that it doesn't impact me or that I don't care about it. If you don't care about it, guess what? It cares about you. But it's like you see the fighter attacking you and you are on the side. You've trained this person. You told this person what to do when they get in the ring. And it's like they just don't listen. Like this person, you could say this fighter that is hitting you is leaving his face open. He has his guard down at times, but you still won't swing. You still won't swing. You keep taking concessions. You keep grappling with him to go against the rope so the referee can break it up. All of these things that can appear staged as if you're not really putting any effort forward. And what I think of as a former classroom teacher is this, idea of there was always this disconnect between teachers in the classroom and the administrators. And the biggest disconnect came because the administrators, like a principal or maybe a dean, they probably had not been in the classroom for several years. So you're telling me what I should be doing, what's best for me, what works for me, but you haven't been teaching these kids in 5 to 10 years. The kids of 2025 ain't the kids of even 2015 or the kids of 2005. So you can't tell me to go buy this book and do things this way because it worked for you when you left the class in 2005. Like, when is the last time some of these folks really walked the streets and was in community with the people that are truly harmed by this right here? I think we all probably know somebody at this point in time that has been impacted in a deleterious way with this administration. I've known nonprofit leaders to lose their job. I know folks who are losing income, losing access to healthcare. So whether this resolution, we can say it's symbolic, but we know symbols mean something, because the same threat that we have been under was also symbolically represented by Confederate monuments all across the country. They want those things there for a reason. They want to have this Charlie Kirk resolution, while at the same time banning history teachers from teaching the truth for a reason. It's only a matter of time before that goes from a resolution to being on par with our leaders like a Dr. King or even Juneteenth.
Let me pivot, if I can, Ernest, away from Charlie Kirk for a moment to Kamala Harris's new book, which I've ordered but I have not read. But today, Politico writes, and this is on the question of Democratic Party hypocrisy, Kamala Harris's new book befuddles Dems. If there's a strategy here, it's a bad one. Los Angeles. If Kamala Harris ever does want to run for public office again, her ambush of fellow Democrats will add to her complications. Typically buttoned up, Harris used her new memoir to speak her mind. Now, she didn't speak her mind according to the pre-advertisement for the book during the campaign. She's speaking her mind now that the campaign is over, raising the question as to whether or not hypocrisy was in play, even in the 107 days, the title of her book. Now leaders of her own party are baffled and angry. Not even officially released, Harris's account of 107 days was immediately met with pushback from several likely 2028 contenders, including Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. And that is just the start. From Washington to Los Angeles, according to the interviews with more than 15 Democratic operatives across the country, the tome landed with a thud among the political class struggling to make sense of the former vice president's account, which is peppered with digs at fellow party members and frustrations with how her warp speed campaign played out. If there's a political strategy here, Pete Giangreco and David Axelrod say. No one can find it yet. The 300-page memoir, written as a chronological log of her truncated campaign, reads alternatively as a spirited defense of her record, a mea culpa for her shortcomings as a candidate, and dishy tell-all on fellow Democrats, really exposing the hypocrisy. Now, I don't separate what we saw with this resolution, what's coming out in Kamala Harris's book, this question of we say one thing, but we do another, or we're acting one way, but we're doing another. We say one thing to voters, but we mean to do something else with voters. And then there's this huge group of millennials who are sitting here looking for a leader, someone to stand up and speak truth to power, to speak to them. I don't separate this question of hypocrisy from the Democratic Party's 26% ratings in the poll, which is, well, it's somewhere down there by Al Capone. I mean, it's somewhere down there by by freaking Frack, by Laurel and Hardy. I mean, it's just not funny. It's just way down there low at a time when Democrats have an opportunity to be surging in the midterms. And usually, by the way, during the midterms, the party in power of the White House loses control of the Congress. We are so low in the polls, plus the attacks on the Voting Rights Act, we actually may lose seats in this context of the midterms. Ernest? Hypocrisy.
I think what's interesting too is so a lot of folks on this left side have been demanding change for a long time with the Democratic Party. And of course, again, I haven't, read a lot of interviews, and of course the book is not out yet, but I think that if she and other folks are not able to get the change they were desiring inside and behind closed doors, then it's almost like, to me, what else is she expected to do? I believe Biden's former press secretary had some similar sentiments in terms of how the Democratic Party was run. I don't think from this that we could expect Kamala to be running again, but I think that hopefully this is a time for them to reckon with the truths of how she feels, because I think also the reality is she should have been given a lot more time. And I think I've heard quotes that she expressed that sentiment.
When we come forward, more with Ernest Krim on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
September is World Alzheimer's Month, a time to shine a light on a public health crisis that deeply impacts Black families. 1 in 5 Black adults ages 70 and older is living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD, and the risk is twice as high compared to white adults. But AD isn't just forgetting a name or losing track of time. Signs of early AD could be repeating questions, missing appointments, or struggling with bills and daily tasks. These things aren't a normal part of aging. Here's the good news. Treatments are available that may help if AD is diagnosed early. If you notice changes in memory or daily routines, whether in yourself or a loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatalsearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com to learn more about the signs and symptoms and a potential treatment option. This message is brought to you by AZI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you wet shaving? You'll get razor bumps. Nah, Pops, I'm good with Gillette Skin Guard. How long you been growing that beard Mama hates anyway?
Since 77, I shaved and got ingrown so bad.
That's why I use the Gillette Skin Guard razor, face scrub, shave gel, and moisturizer. So I don't have to worry about new razor bumps or shaving irritation.
Gillette Skin Guard, huh? Your mama's gonna love this one.
The best a man can get keeps getting better with Gillette Skin Guard. Buy now at a retailer near you.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jackson Jr., welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. In the next hour on Moving Mountain Mondays, the Faith Not to Fall, the General Minister and President of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada, will be our host. She is the first person of color and second woman to lead the denomination with the priority of welcoming all to the Lord's table as God has welcomed us. I want to speak with Dr. Teresa Hord Owens in the next hour about hypocrisy, because we don't see it in the polling. We don't talk about it often. It's kind of there, but it's kind of not there. But when I ask someone to vote for me, I'm asking them to believe in me. I'm asking them to trust me. I'm asking them to represent me. And on the one hand, we challenge the administration for its lack of fortitude, for lack of honesty. But then on the other hand, with a sleight of hand, we say we are for civil rights, we are for human rights, we are for the Civil Rights Act, but then we honor the very person who's against these things. How do you reconcile these two extreme polar opposites and then call yourself anything other than a hypocrite? And it's not just this issue. It's the other issues like healthcare and housing. When you say you're with us, but then you're not. When you fight for us, but then you fight against us at the same time. You just can't have it both ways. Anyway, in the remaining segment of our show, our guest is none other than our favorite millennial, my favorite millennial, Ernest Krim. He is an Emmy-nominated producer, thinker, anti-racist teacher, and simply one of the best and brightest that our generation is teaching and is willing to learn, but he is sharing a lot with millions of Americans. Ernest, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Well, thanks again for having me on this important radio show and on this important conversation and topic.
Ernest, let me turn to your constituency for a moment. Young people, millennials, people in your age group, and your own children. What do they hear? What are they hearing? Are they motivated? Are they hearing the resistance that this administration needs to go, that Washington is dysfunctional, that our rights are being taken away? Or are they somewhat self-critical of the only options that they have in this process, which right now appears to be the Democratic Party?
I think a lot of folks in my generation, and I would even probably say some of Gen Z, are really trying to figure out what else there is to this. What else can we do? Are there any other options? I think a lot of folks too are disillusioned, because when you think about how much he has taken away in such a short amount of time, you know, I told somebody this weekend, like, it takes years and years to build a skyscraper in a moment to tear it down. It makes me wonder, and it makes a lot of us wonder, can this be repaired through in the manner that we've been taught through electoral politics? You know, I grapple with this a lot because I am naturally an optimistic person, but a lot of that optimism rests with my faith, my own abilities, my family, and my community, who I've seen be persistent, you know, and persistently on the front lines of change. I do not have that same optimism for our government structures, but I do have the optimism before we get, of course, to the end and I provide my message of hope. I have optimism with us. I think that we can figure something out, but I think we also have to realize that there is no one moment that should call us together to be on alert. The moment is now. And I can say, as a former classroom teacher, that the ways that we are taught to teach history is often even from this spectator perspective, or even kind of like a cinematic perspective. We are taught history in these dates and these times and these themes and these characters, paragraph by paragraph, with questions at the end that are multiple choice or short answer. But we aren't taught that these things happen in cycles, and that human nature has, and especially in this country, has not truly evolved. What we have truly, in my opinion, seen is that what was in the previous generation has simply adjusted to what is politically correct today. And if we were able to even compare the political progress we've seen in this country with the technological progress that has given us different mediums of spreading information and exposing things, I think we would see those things are hand in hand. Because when you expose someone's hand in the cookie jar, either they'll stop or they'll just find another way to grab it. And we've exposed it. And I think what we see now is they've just decided to go under the table to get these cookies. And I think, I don't know if you all watched last week tonight, but I was watching John Oliver talk, and he had this brilliant expose about this. And one of the quotes that he said that I wanted to share that I thought was very timely is he said that giving the bully your lunch money doesn't make him go away. It just makes him come back hungrier each time.
A bully wants more unless you knock his teeth out.
The bully ain't gonna be like, "Hey, thank you for yesterday." Like, I wanted $1, now I want $2. You know what I'm saying?
So a bully simply can't be satisfied. No, I get that. Now, this memorial service yesterday, and this is no laughing matter, started out very solemn and very mournful.
Yeah.
But by the end, it became kind of political vitriol and vengeance, going after people who had absolutely nothing to do with the events in Utah of a couple of weeks ago. The tenor and the tone also matters. I am suggesting in this moment that the hypocrisy within the Democratic Party is one reason why millennials and Gen Z and others, some days I feel like I shouldn't vote, right? But I got enough sense of history to know that I have no choice. You have the hypocrisy on the Democratic side, but you have the vitriol and a different kind of tonality, if you will, on the other side. And so it leaves people disengaged, dispirited, and not willing to vote for either side. They can't reconcile the meanness on this side, and they can't reconcile the dishonest sentimentality on the other side. And so, I might as well just try and make it on my own. When I look downstate, in downstate Illinois, in some parts of the far south side of Chicago, I've heard many MAGA supporters, for example, say that, we've learned to live without Democrats and without Republicans. We care for each other. We take care of each other. We don't expect anything from the Democrats, and we don't expect anything from the Republicans. And in not expecting anything from either of them, they form their own community. Their community of no expectations and no hope from either in that spectrum right there. Have you heard any of that, Ernest?
I think that has been a common sentiment for a lot of folks, people I organize with, and folks in Chicago. This idea that, like, if for instance, if Trump is sending in the National Guard, we don't want or need that because we protect each other. We are our best support. But I will say with that I think we have one of the best political defenses set up, because if you are in Chicago, you have a mayor that is in opposition to that vocally and through legislation. You have a governor who is vocally against it and with legislation, and he has the pocketbook as well to match whatever Trump is talking about. So you can be for your community, but you also want to have folks in power who can support you doing that, because we know what it looks like now is that there are people who can make it very difficult. And I also want to let people know that I think now more than ever, we can also see how important it is to have local politics in order, because that's your best political defense. He said he wasn't going to bring the National Guard in because of the organization and the resistance. Now he's going to keep trying, but that first success only came as a result of the people on the ground and those in office who agreed with that.
Ernest, let me throw this out at you, and I don't really have about a minute and a half before we come forward, but I don't see their vote having been there and done this myself, as a vote for the First Amendment. That's the optimistic point of those who did vote for the Charlie Kirk resolution. I see those Democrats having given a nod to white supremacy. They couldn't say it. They're hiding behind the First Amendment argument. But they said to some of their supporters, again, 37% of my district is MAGA, 49% African American, and the rest Hispanic and others. They gave a nod to white supremacy in the name of the First Amendment. Ernest, thank you for being on our show today.
Thanks for having me again.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. In our next hour, Teresa Hord Owens, the General President of the United Disciples of Christ Church, is our very special guest for the next hour. On KBLA Talk 1580
Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is standing by his remarks, calling jails and law enforcement a sickness despite backlash from prosecutors and police.
The people who heard my statement, they know exactly what I meant and what I'm talking about.
Johnson later clarified, saying law enforcement alone does not keep communities safe and should not be viewed as salvation for Black and brown neighborhoods. Former Vice President Kamala Harris will sit down tonight with MSNBC for her first major interview since losing the 2024 election, as she promotes her memoir, 107 Days, about her brief run for the White House. And students at Best Academy in Atlanta have made history as the nation's first all-Black high school polo team. Their debut at the Atlanta Polo Party was made possible through designer Miguel Wilson's Ride to the Olympics Foundation, with leaders praising the sport for building confidence, discipline, and new opportunities. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. The President and General Minister of the Disciples of Christ in Canada and the U.S., Reverend Teresa Hord Owens, is on our show on the Faith Not to Fall. Reverend Teresa Hord Owens is one of our greatest contributors because of the clarity that she brings to so many issues. Reverend Owens, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and the Faith Not to Fall.
Welcome, my brother. As always, I'm a bit agitated after the first hour because I'm right with you both in terms of the frustration over what's happening. So, but always good to be with you.
Madam President, let me ask you this question. The Gospels seem to take a particular interest. Very rarely does the sentimental Jesus of Nazareth raise his voice or speak in a tone other than when he obviously enters a temple and begins turning over tables and money changers, and when he catches in another synagogue, he restates Isaiah's longing for a Messiah, a representative, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But Jesus takes particular angle at the hypocrite.
Yes, he does.
He just goes on and on and on, as in basically saying, I can't stand the hypocrite. I mean, I don't want to go through all of the biblical verses, given that this is a secular show, but the idea of hypocrisy is what it is. I mean, hypocrisy is an awful thing to look someone in their face and tell them a lie.
It's at the heart of Jesus's anger. All those passages where he says, woe, right? When Jesus says, woe, W-O-E, not W-H-O-A, but W-O-E, woe to you hypocrites. And he, I think it's in Matthew where he talks about that they're like whitewashed tombs filled with dead men's bones and all other sorts of uncleanness. So we can look and say a lot of things, but the manner in which we live and what we do, and ultimately the choices that we make, will reveal exactly where our priorities and our values lie. And that's perhaps the text. It's even in Revelation, I believe, where the prophet John says, God will spit you out of his mouth because you've been neither hot nor cold. You got to stand somewhere. You can't just ride the middle and think that either side will come to appreciate you. Even God says, finally, you have to take a stand, or I really don't want to have anything to do with you.
Madam President, can we apply that argument for hypocrisy to our politics and why some of us choose to disengage? And of course, I don't disengage, but there are many people who are disengaging, and they disengage when they say this: I'm done with both political parties. Democrats don't speak for me. Trump doesn't represent me. At the heart of this disengagement is a word that those who do disengage rarely used. I'm tired of the hypocrites. Woe unto the hypocrites. Help us understand bridging the gap between thought and deed, between philosophy and action.
Mm-hmm. And, as a minister, a Christian minister who's often involved in Christian ecumenical work and interfaith work, I'm regularly on the Hill with various and sundry folks who are trying to advocate to bring some kind of moral analysis to what's going on. People will believe what you say until you don't do what you say. And so if we say that we're working to create a living wage or the inclusion and protection of folks who have health care, and then they see that doesn't happen, or that you vote against their own interests, they grow tired of not seeing real change come. And they grow tired of hearing that people are there to challenge the system on behalf of the people, and then see people who become co-opted by the system and find it easier to go along with a party directive than they do to stand for what they, and ostensibly for what their own constituents believe in. And I think the Democrats have not done such a good job of standing up for those communities that they claim. The Democratic Party used to be the party of the working people. It used to be, the history of Black people began with supporting the Republican Party with Lincoln until Second World War and Roosevelt
shows up making sense.
Roosevelt shows up making sense, cares for poor people, is trying to help people get jobs, making sure that people don't fall between the cracks, and they become Democratic. And then the Southern white Democrats, right, switch over to the Republican Party because they believe that work ultimately, and Lyndon Johnson kind of seals the deal with the civil rights legislation, where you then have Democrats in the South moving more to the Republican Party. So when you say that you're for a particular set of values, and then you make choices that show that you're really out for a different thing, that's when people get frustrated. And I think I always tell people, too many people literally bled and died so that I could exercise my right to vote. And we must all, that's at the heart of our democracy. So we really should not consider tuning out or disconnecting as an option. It's just really too important. And many times that's what people are trying to do, right? They're trying to create this confusion. The Republicans right now are trying to do everything they can to discourage you from voting. I have a friend, a white female minister who lives in Florida, just cast an absentee ballot for one of their primaries, and made note of the fact that, mail-in ballots are still okay, but she is, there are fewer places to drop off those ballots. So in so many ways, we speak free speech, we speak protection of rights, we speak taking care of the working class, and then we have parties that pass legislations like the horrible, awful bill. And then we have situations where you want to stand for integrity, but you're going to ignore the hypocrisy of honoring a person whom people want to shroud in all sorts of martyrdom and holiness, and yet who spoke some of the most divisive and really anti-Christian words that have been spoken in a long time. So people get confused that's why my whole thing is, let's be who you say you are. That's all we can ask. It's as simple as keeping your word or being clear and being committed to who you say you believe in, because your choices will reflect it. And when your choices conflict with what you say, I always say there's something more important to you.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, The Faith Not the Fall, with Reverend Teresa Horde Owens on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
You know that Big Bargain detergent jug is 80% water, right? It doesn't clean as well.
80% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure, concentrated cleaning ingredients.
Oh, let me make an announcement.
Attention shoppers, if you want a real deal, try Tide Pods.
Stop paying for watered-down detergents. Pay for clean. If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Pods. Water content based on the leading bargain liquid detergent.
Dude, did you order the new iPhone 17 Pro? Got it from Verizon, the best 5G network in America. I've never looked so good.
You look the same.
But with this camera, everything looks better, especially me.
You haven't changed your hair in 15 years. Selfies?
Check, please.
New and existing customers can get the new iPhone 17 Pro, designed to be the most powerful iPhone ever. With eligible phone trade-in and unlimited ultimate, any condition guaranteed. Best 5G scores, root metrics data, United States, 1H 2025. All rights reserved. Trade-in and additional terms apply for all offers. See Verizon.com for details.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Loss Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land loss before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandloss.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I'm in Washington, D.C. this week. So is the entire Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We're live from Washington, D.C. The Congressional Black Caucus 2025. A number of members of Congress will be coming in and out of our program this week. We're going to be talking about the issues that they're confronting and some of the challenges that our nation is and are confronting at this particular hour in our history. A number of concerns about the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and whether or not by 2032 we will have no Negroes in Congress whatsoever. Sounds like a far-fetched idea, but that is part of the plan, and it has taken place before during first Reconstruction. But in this hour, I'm doing my very best with our spiritual leader, Reverend Teresa Hord Owens, who guides our faith through the week with her program on Monday and sets the stage for what else is to come. Reverend Teresa Hord Owens is the general minister and president of the Christian Church of the Disciples. She is the first person of color, second woman to lead a mainline denomination where 80% of her followers, guess what, are not people of color. She's got a rough job to keep her church together in both the United States and in Canada, and she does an amazing job of it by uniting people around a common table. And one way for people to get up and leave the table if there's a bunch of hypocrites sitting at it. And no one believes what anyone is saying. There's no trust. There's no basis for value system. How do you hold people and keep them around a table if, in fact, there is deception, manipulation, dishonesty, a lack of integrity? And so, Madam President, I do want to ask this question because it seems to me on our personal moral journeys through this life that so much of that journey is trying to avoid being called a hypocrite. Now, my own mama told me before, you lied to me, boy. I mean, I've been called a liar by my mama. That wasn't true. I didn't mean to do that, Mom. I might have, you did this, you did that. Well, we've experienced being called names. But my mother ain't never called me no hypocrite. I'm not a pathological liar.
Correct.
I'm not perpetually lying. I ain't crazy. So I'm trying to figure out here, since all of us are trying to avoid being hypocrites, when hypocrisy is on full display and it gets called out, Tavis calls out hypocrisy all the time, right? When you call it out, there's then this reaction to those who challenge the nature of the untruth and the action, bringing it to broad view. You can't say on the one hand that Charlie Kirk was this great American who stood for these values, but then the values that he's espousing were so hateful to so many different groups of people and unremorsefully so.
Yes.
And then try and reconcile them and say, well, now I need to celebrate this in some kind of memorial or symbolism because of the value of free speech. Well, if the value of free speech is okay, then we should have Malcolm X holidays and we should have statues of Malcolm everywhere. And we should be honoring people who raised hell about this republic.
That's right.
But this is not the case.
Right.
So we've taken down as many Confederate because of the hypocrisy of what they fought for. But then we're elevating Charlie Kirk in this new era. I really don't want to hang around Charlie as much as I want to encourage people to get out and vote and exercise their rights. But it seems to me many people, Madam President, are reluctant because of this spiritual struggle in the observation of hypocrisy.
Yeah. And the dangerous thing about Charlie Kirk, and again, we certainly denounce any kind of violence. That's never the way to solve a problem. But all you have to do is look at what the man said. That doesn't mean that he deserved to die. That's not the point. The hypocrisy is in elevating that very kind of racist vitriol and shrouding it, if you will, not only in martyrdom, but shrouding some of the comments that I was in and out of listening to that funeral yesterday. And in and out of that are attempts to really lift him up more of as a spiritual leader, as opposed to, I think, a political actor who used faith and spirit to sort of whitewash, if you will, his own philosophies and his own. And that's a dangerous thing when you call it wolf in sheep's clothing, whatever you want. But when you present a particular image that totally disagrees with what you say and how you behave and what you're searching for, I don't see how we as a nation can elevate that kind of behavior and language. And I don't see how, my tradition is very careful. And we believe in a wide berth for theological diversity and disagreement. But one of the important things that we would hold, and one of the things that I personally hold people to, is if you believe in a God of love, just start there. There are just certain places you can't go. And so if you believe in a God of love, you cannot be exclusive. You cannot say the kinds of things about women, Black women, Hispanics, Indigenous people. You cannot say and do the kinds of things that Charlie Kirk said, still trying to say that this is being led by the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit cannot lead you down a path that denigrates and despises other people. A critique of injustice is not a denigration of another person's humanity. So if people who are unjust or who are facing injustice, such as our people, we've clung all the more to the witness of the Bible and to the idea that what we're doing is a moral movement. John Lewis said over and over again, and he wrote about this, that had he not been grounded in nonviolent philosophy as really a theology and as an understanding of the way of God, that's how he was able to deal with the personal indignities, to deal with the violence that he himself suffered. You have never seen the movement grounded in nonviolence, reaching out to say, let's go to war. They don't know what kind of army they have awakened at this point. When things are grounded in a moral framework of both love and respect for others, regardless of the disagreements, the response cannot be retribution. So when I see those kinds of choices being made in conflict with an understanding of Christian morals and really not even Christian, but just the morals of most faith traditions, that raises a red flag. That's what I am perhaps just as concerned about, this exploitation of Christian language being used to mask what's actually very violent and inhumane behavior.
I want to dive in a little bit deeper on this question. I was sharing with our producer, Gina Towns, earlier this week that, 250 years ago, Benjamin Franklin said that every person should have the Bible in one hand and a newspaper in the other. 100 years ago, Karl Barth said we need to have the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other. Now, I'm going to update that for us. I believe you have to have the Bible in one hand and the philological criticisms of Frederick Douglass, W.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, Stokely Carmichael, Martin Luther King, Thurgood Marshall, Fannie Lou Hamer, Harriet Tubman, Howard Thurman, Aubrey Hendricks, Michael Eric Dyson, Cornel West, John Howard Wesley, Otis Moss Jr. and the Third. As part of my biblical criticism, when I pick up my newspaper in the morning, I bring all of that with me when I read the newspaper, saying, you know what? The Negro's in trouble today. There is a problem.
Yeah.
Because my Christian ethos isn't just the foundation of truth in the Bible. It is brought through the existential reality of Black folk and their criticism through time. Their, if you will, James Baldwin, to be Black in America is to be in a permanent state of rage every day.
Every single day. Yeah.
Every single day. And then read the newspaper. Now, by the time I've gone through that criticism, I mean, I look at the scripture and I've got something else to say about it. It is not evangelical. It is not what they expect. Because it sounds more like Freddie Haynes, and it sounds more like Jamal Bryant. It sounds more like Teresa Hort Owens. It sounds more like John Howard Wesley. Madam President, was that journey that I just took us through okay?
Absolutely. First of all, I would say that all of that, if you really study the Bible closely, you'll find that all of those people sound a whole lot like Jesus. And I continue to argue that a close reading of that text, the only thing it can yield for you is what we would label as a progressive politics, because it speaks to life-giving activity. It speaks to caring for one another and ensuring that we all have what we need. And we fight these battles of justice because we have so much injustice and oppression being wielded against groups of people where that concept of common good and human flourishing is being violated. James Cone, when the father of Black liberation theology.
Why did I leave him out?
Yeah. Well, with the great thing there that we learned from Black liberation theology, which, there are some people who try to argue that Latin liberation theology came first, but I believe Cone was really the first. But he elevated the importance of experience as in our theology. And I always say all theology is just making sense of what you believe about God. And some of us do it using the work of other thinkers, but we all in some way have our own theologies. We have a system of belief that helps us make sense of what we believe about God. And Western theology was often, until recently, built on a Western white set of experiences and norms. And what we've learned in liberation theology is that the experience of those persons who are doing the work to understand God matter just as much. So you can't tell me my theology is bad or good. There's no evaluation that you can really make there. It can be faithful to the text, but it must also be faithful to our experience. I just don't believe at a core level you could start with God being a God of limitless love and wind up doing some of the things that you see our elected officials doing. For you to claim Jesus as your heritage, you don't sound anything like Jesus when you're saying some of the things that Charlie Kirk said. That's just the fact. To speak truth about the history of the violence and oppression that white people have visited upon Black people is not denigrating white people. It's simply telling the truth. We've moved to an environment where anything that's spoken negative against non-people of color or white people is viewed as somehow racism. We've gotten this whole thing twisted about because we're holding up this white norm that experience is the one to be valued. And if you're to be a part of America, you've got to conform to those values and that experience. And we're distorting Christianity in the process. And this is, we're talking about erasing books that can be read in schools. We're talking about erasing websites. The reporter from the Washington Post, in the letter, she was on an NPR show this morning, and they read from part of the letter for basically bringing up the historical fact of the violence of white people against Black people. She was being held accountable, gross misconduct, because you're not supposed to say anything that disparages people because of their race. that's not disparaging you because of your race. It's
Tell
simply
the truth.
stating fact. It's telling the
Tell
truth.
the truth.
So when you say that I can't tell the truth, which means that even if Black people are the ones who are wrong, even if Hispanic people, if wrong is wrong, say that. But don't tell me that speaking the truth about any group is racist. That makes no sense, actually. We've abandoned a moral center here, and even a political center that values this notion of liberty, which I think you, Congressman Jackson, have always held up, that there was some assumption about who would lead this country, that these would be people of character, men of character was the initial assumption. But it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard when we can no longer make those assumptions. It used to be that we held people accountable for a failure of character. We no longer do that.
I think evangelicals heard Benjamin Franklin on the question of the Bible and the newspaper. I think evangelicals heard Karl Barth on the question of the Bible and the newspaper. But it is impossible to read the Bible without our personal experience, our lived experience, our interpretive reality. When we bring that to the newspaper, we are engaged every day in ways that we would not be if we had not brought our interpretive reality. To not bring that interpretive reality is to have us engaged on the side of the evangelicals. They read their Bible, they're quoting the Bible, they're turning around and saying, this is what reality is in the newspaper, and we need to see it through that lens. And then there's our interpretive reality, where we study war no more, where we fight for justice, where we fight for peace, where we fight for the liberation of people, because our Exodus story matters to this equation too. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, The Faith Not the Fall, with Reverend Teresa Hord Owens. More when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Congresswoman Maxine Waters and activists are urging the UN to investigate U.S. immigration raids, saying President Trump is violating the Constitution.
We're here because rights are not abstractions. They are promises that must be upheld in the places people live and work.
They want UN leaders to visit Los Angeles and other cities impacted by arrests. Monday on The View, Whoopi Goldberg criticized the FCC over Jimmy Kimmel's suspension, saying the government should not silence people. Anna Navarro added it reminded her of living under dictatorships. Kimmel was pulled off the air after remarks about Charlie Kirk's assassination. And New York City mayoral candidates stayed busy on the trail Sunday. Democrat Zohran Mamdani spoke at Harlem's African American Day and hinted at support from Speaker Hakeem Jeffries. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo visited churches, stressing his experience. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org. The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The University of Pittsburgh announced Monday morning that they are retiring the number 97 jersey of former Rams defensive star Aaron Donald. Donald played at Pitt from 2010 to 2013. Pittsburgh is retiring Donald's number at their November 15th home game against Notre Dame. Donald was a first-round pick of the Rams in 2014. He played all 10 of his NFL seasons with the Rams before retiring in 2023. Donald will be a first-ballot Hall of Famer in 2028. The main reason the Rams blew a 19-point lead in Philadelphia Sunday was because their defense broke down late in the game. In the fourth quarter, the Eagles were successful on 4 third-down conversions and 2 fourth-down conversions. The Rams defense just couldn't get off the field. Top 5 teams in this week's college football poll: Ohio State, Miami, Penn State, LSU, and Georgia. 4-0 USC moved up from 25 to 21. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least liked to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks Vapors in an easy-to-apply stick, and it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks Vapors when you need more comfort for yourself. Use as directed.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Severe from Vicks.
Sinex Severe Nasal Spray.
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Severe instantly relieves nasal congestion and works 6 times faster than nasal decongestant tablets. The 12 hours of relief allow you to get back to the moments that matter without congestion.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it! Try Sinex Severe from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour is always our spiritual leader, Reverend Dr. Teresa Hort Owens, who, well, she's a doctor because she's a doctor. She's a healer, a counselor, and I'm so grateful that she's on our program. She is the General Minister and President of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada. She is the first person of color and the second woman to lead the denomination, with a priority in welcoming all to the Lord's table, as God has welcomed us. Reverend Owens, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I so enjoy our conversations.
I have a bit of breaking news. Jimmy Kimmel is going live tomorrow. ABC has decided to give Mr. Kimmel his job.
I saw that alert on my phone myself. Yes, it'll be interesting to know what the terms of that return are.
Yeah, I heard that. Mm-hmm. He is clearly a voice that has created, I've heard, as much as $30 billion in the devaluation of the Disney Corporation and ABC's brand as a result of his suspension, which, quite frankly, under the First Amendment to the Constitution, this could be as much of a turning point, if you will, for us in defending First Amendment rights and First Amendment values. And, I thought earlier this week about my late friend, Larry Flint, People versus Larry
Yes, yes.
Whether you agree with the porn industry or not, Larry put up one hell of a fight in the People versus Larry Flint, and it led to satire. It led to the creation of Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live owes its existence to Larry Flint. And from that came David Letterman and Jimmy Kimmel and you name it, late night talk, garbage talk comes from the People versus Larry Flint. And I want to say this because I want our president to give some thought to this idea that First Amendment values are fairly new in the African American experience. The First Amendment, when added to the Constitution in 1791, was not a right available to African Americans.
Yes.
It certainly wasn't even a right available to white women in our society in 1791. So we talk about this Bill of Rights that apply to white male landowners. Not all white men could speak out of turn in 1791. That's a fact.
Yes, you had to be a landowner.
You had to be a landowner. And not until the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, when we moved from states' rights as a society to the idea of human rights. If slavery is a state right, then states' rights cannot be human rights. So we have these constitutional rights, citizenship rights that come together to establish our humanity. And when those rights are added to the Constitution, finally, the Negro had the right to speak. And even then, if he spoke out of turn, he might end up hanging from strange fruit.
Correct.
From a tree. So the First Amendment for Black people in this country is a relatively new value. So when Marge Schott or even Fox commentators say to LeBron James, shut up and dribble.
Right.
Madam President, there's more history of that when it comes to First Amendment values for Black people than there's a history of free speech.
Oh, absolutely. And the codification of that, the stratifying, I guess you will, the ghettoizing of our society was only legally begun to be dismantled with the civil rights legislation. And even then, I mean, you think about Word versus Brown versus the Board of Education, 1954, those words with all deliberate speed, that still to this day is not really, has not really happened. And when you see housing patterns,
it's still a jalopy, right?
Yeah. When you still when you see housing patterns in the city of Chicago, society still segregates itself. And as you know, one of the big issues that friends like Reverend James Meeks fought so hard against is the funding formula for public education that says if it's based on property taxes, there is structural inequity that people can't simply overcome. And the threat to even like the city of Chicago, where you have a person who can make these threats against money that's already been allocated, we're now violating other important parts of the Constitution in terms of who has the power of the purse. President doesn't care about freedom of speech, even though you can bring up clips of him declaring that his ability to say what he wants to say is an expression of freedom of speech. But do not criticize him. Do not criticize them. You are anti-American if you speak of the truth of slavery, if you speak of the truth of the internment of Japanese during World War II, if you speak of the genocide of indigenous peoples in this country. Speaking the truth, we can't help it if the truth means that the record shows that it was white people who did these things. That's not against all white people. It's just the record of the action that was taken. And you have to speak truth. And the moment that we are afraid to speak truth, that's when authoritarianism, that's the first thing to go in a fascist regime, is the freedom to speak truth. That's what the freedom of speech really is. The freedom to speak truth. And if you're going to all these lawsuits against slander, you have to prove intent to do harm. You have to prove that you knowingly did not speak the truth and that you intended to do harm. You have to prove those things in order to be guilty of slander. And I think that raises a high bar. That truth itself is not slander. just because it reflects negatively on you. So all of these frameworks for Black folks and women were still relatively new. And the fact that in our lifetimes, the very things that our parents and grandparents fought so hard for are being dismantled in front of our very eyes is appalling, particularly since these things came to be available to us in our lifetimes. You know, the year I was 5 years old in 1965. I was among the first probably group of college students who were admitted under various affirmative action policies. I went to a predominantly white institution. Had I been going to college, maybe even 5 years sooner, I would have had a better chance at a historically Black college or university, simply because those white institutions had no incentive to admit people like me, as credentialed and as qualified as I might have been. So it's too new, and the fact that it's being dismantled is another sign of the problem of what the priorities really are in this country by too many.
Madam President, and when I think about UCLA, when I think about University of Southern Cal, when I think about in this moment, I'm thinking about one of the great orators of our tradition who recently succumbed to their illness and lost their life, Reverend Dr. J. Alfred Smith, out of Oakland, California, at Allen Temple. When I think about, you know, the government reaching into a campus for essentially a child, I get it, they're young adults, 18 to 21 years old, been there, done that, but my child is 18 to 21, and as long as I'm paying this bill, they're my child. Reaching into a campus to determine whether or not this organization can exist, to call an organization in a majority context, let's say at University of Southern California, a predominantly white school, to say that Black Lives Matter cannot have a cultural expression, or that, you know, Greek fraternities and sororities that cater to African American life and existence and tradition cannot have an existence in this context as a form of speech, knowledge, cultural development is profoundly troubling for me. You know, you see where I'm going.
So yeah, absolutely.
I know that we're going to be coming forward in just a minute, but I just wanted to add that that the First Amendment for us is new. There was a lot of bowing and scraping to get to an African American being able to speak their mind in the Congress of the United States and in state legislatures across our country. A lot of it. And we finally arrived at Shirley Chisholm. We finally arrived at Barbara Jordan. We finally arrived at Kamala Harris. And even in Kamala Harris's new book, there's great criticism as to whether or not her exercising her First Amendment rights is something even Democrats are willing to tolerate. You're listening to the Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward with the President and General Minister of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40, and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-729-7070. That's 1-800-729-7070. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. That's 1-800-729-7070. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
I can't believe how spotless my floors look after using the Swiffer Power Mop. No more dragging around a heavy mop and messy bucket. Now I get the same deep clean without all the work. Thanks to the powerful solution and scrubbing pad of the Swiffer Power Mop, dirt and grime don't stand a chance, and I don't break a sweat. Mic drop. Mop drop.
Swiffer Power Mop. Swiffer Power Mop.
A smarter way to mop. Try it or your money back.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. In this hour, we are speaking with none other than Teresa Hord Owens, the President and General Minister of the Disciples of Christ. Madam President, thank you for being back on our show.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's always good to be here.
She hosts our Monday series, The Faith Not to Fall, and today we've been talking about First Amendment values, the idea and the challenges of hypocrisy, and calling hypocrisy exactly what it is. And we've been giving some thought, to the overall reflection of where we find ourselves at this hour as a nation. Madam President, I'm sure you've given some thought to that this week, and I'd like your thoughts on what's next.
Given where we are, I think one of the most disturbing aspects for me as a faith leader has been the use of Christianity in particular to shroud certain kinds of activity and opinions as though they were the gospel truth. I don't know how you sort of ostensibly take up a cross and say you're following Jesus, and yet you denigrate and spew hatred and seek to destroy systems and build others that will violate human rights and human dignity. I don't know how you do that. I'm concerned about so many people who have been, on one hand, that will say they've been led to Christ. Their faith has been strengthened by the words of a particular person or another, and yet many of them probably don't know the historical, even the traditional canon, the sacred text of the tradition well enough to know how severely the words of this person have violated those very values that they claim led them to a religious experience. I think of so much that is boiling even in my own denomination, and I've been working for a couple of weeks now on a statement that I will issue to the church about what has happened. Part of you just wants to yell and call people crazy, but the other part of me understands that my role is really to somehow guide this little ship towards the path of truth, and do so in a way that for me is personally, biblically, and morally grounded, so that I can offer the critique of even those within my own church to help them see and understand sort of a better way to frame it. Not to be, we have so many people still who will say, oh, don't talk about it. You'll be criticized. People will threaten you. You'll create division. Don't talk about it. There's no way that we can deal with this huge division and chaos in our country without talking about it. It's immoral. It's illegal. And the longer we stand for this kind of disruption, the weaker our democracy becomes. And if you are a Christian out there and you care about the freedom to practice your religion, one by one, these freedoms will fall. If I can't say what I think, how am I to be guaranteed to be able to worship as I choose or to believe as I choose? These things are all tied together, and we ignore this moment to our peril. We have to acknowledge what's happening, and we have to say something. We have to speak up. We certainly need to get to the polls and vote. We've got to change those numbers in both the House and the Senate so that we can get things done. And if we can do it in 26, we have to remove this immoral, very mentally sick person from the presidency. I don't know if you've heard about the great number of professional psychiatrists and psychologists who basically name this president as being a malignant narcissist. Now, when people who hold medical degrees and psychiatry degrees are willing to lean into their responsibility, what they call a duty to warn, to say that this man, Trump, is a malignant narcissist, very different even from a narcissist. Malignant narcissist, they say there's no cure for that.
Not well.
You're just not well, and you have no moral center. That's the whole thing. You not only are you focused on yourself, but you have no moral center. What some of the saints will call, you have a reprobate mind. You don't even know the difference between right and wrong, and you don't care. So we really have to address this and deal with this. And I'm focused on how I speak to my church, how we're working together. I was in a meeting with one of our ecumenical partners in Canada, the United Church of Canada, this morning, and we're always having conversations to, first of all, we issued a resolution in our General Assembly affirming Canada's right to its own sovereignty, the thing that we did not wish them to become the 51st state. and we wanted to do that. The World Council of Churches, Central Committee, what I said to them in June in South Africa is the church worldwide must speak up and condemn what's happening in America, the erosion of rights, the inhumanity, the injustice that's going on. We speak up for you when it's happening in your countries. You must speak up and condemn what is happening in the United States.
Madam President, let me ask this question. We have about 4 minutes, and of course, I'd like you to incorporate some word of hope in this final question. The weaponization, this is what I've heard you just say, the weaponization of the cross, that the church, the evangelical church in particular, has given the authoritarian permission, if you will, to round up the homeless and push them to out of sight, out of mind. And the weaponization of the cross in the 20th century gave the authoritarian to just wipe out people they believed played a role in the death of Jesus of Nazareth. The weaponization of the cross, it can be used for so much good, but when weaponized, when not properly understood, it is deeply challenging. Madam President.
Yes, and that's a beautiful way to think about the weaponization of the cross. And it's one of the reasons wherein hope lies. I in my book talk about mainline Christianity being spiritually dry and biblically illiterate. And we have to be able to discern for ourselves the truth of the things that we say we believe. And if we have no other grounding other than somebody who's preaching at us or somebody who's charismatic and we're caught up in the fervor of what this person is saying, if you're a Christian, if you better know your text. If you're a Muslim, know your text. If you're a rabbi, know your text. Happy Rosh Hashanah, which starts tonight for our Jewish siblings. Whatever your faith tradition is, know what it believes and says. Don't let it be created by someone who simply wants to use it to guide you in ways that are perhaps not even consistent with the way of faith that you say you declare. And we have a lot of biblically illiterate and spiritually immature people being led astray by people who really are charlatans and hucksters, whose goal is not so much the promotion of the kingdom of God, but the promotion of their own power. That's just the reality. And if you're purple, if you're blue, if you're white, you're black, I will say, I will say that to you. So the hope I find lies in the integrity of our own walk and the integrity of our own understanding of the traditions that we say we hold. Know for yourself. Don't let anyone else dictate to you what it is that you believe.
I don't think truer words have ever been spoken, especially at this hour in American history. We celebrate, on the one hand, the return of some semblance of normalcy with the return of Jimmy Kimmel to the late night program. On the other hand, we mourn the loss of First Amendment rights on college campuses. We celebrate the elevation of the idea of human rights when we think about Martin Luther King Jr. We think about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. But then on the other hand, we commemorate the loss of certain rights when we create martyrs without understanding, when we create symbols without substance that matter to the lives of all of us, elevating the true symbols of who we not were, but who we are and who we are trying to become as a nation, I believe matter to the American story. And so I want to once again thank KBLA for allowing this forum to occur Monday through Friday, 12 to 2 p.m., because we practice those rights, and the zeal and the zest that we have to stand up for the rights that were given to us by God come from God. And they matter to us because the energy that we take with us on our daily lives matters to our spiritual clarity. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. I want to thank Madam President, the General Minister of the Disciples of Christ Church, Teresa Hort Owens, for her leadership in this delicate hour. Thank you, Madam President. Until next time.
Thank you.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Congresswoman Maxine Waters and activists are urging the UN to investigate U.S. immigration raids, saying President